Hi everyone, I'm very excited to see you all next week. I'm just going to putting together a little video for you to have a look at what we might try next week. We're going to do focus on collage, and I've got 3 sort of separate activities which we will try. Well, I will show you these and then we'll see how many we can get done next Wednesday. So what you will need is your sketchbook, a pair of scissors and some Pritt stick, and then if you have any coloured paper or card, it doesn't really matter if you don't have this. You can always paint the background of one of your pages in your sketchbook, and you need a selection of collage materials. I've sent most of you some, but there's also you can just literally get a magazine or a leaflet from the door, or some, anything really, because we're going to completely change it up. So the first exercise we're going to do is an abstract. So we're going to do an abstract exercise, a still life, and a landscape. So we need our first, let's get to, I'll tell you what, you can use some of your old jelly print as well if you want to. So first of all, I'm going to have the background as a colourful. So you could either paint yours in advance of the class, or like me, you can just get a piece of paper, colour paper. If it's got patterns or marks on it, that's actually fine too. So, and I'm going to stick it down into our book. And yeah, for the first one, I'm going to collect a couple of bits of collage, and this is going to be all based on ripping, and I'm going to rip 3 smaller bits. Maybe, am I going to do 4? Okay, I'm going to rip 4 smaller bits, and then I'm going to rip these into much smaller bits again. So we're basically ripping your collage pieces so they become completely abstract. Lots of different colours, and you might get some words as well, which is cool. And we're wanting it to be all different shapes, but probably, what do you call that? Like about a 1 centimetre roughly, so quite small pieces. And you want, how many do we want? Probably about 20 or 30 pieces. Okay, so a little pile like that. That's our first lot. And then we're going to tear some bigger pieces. So this is more like 5 centimetres by 5 centimetres. And keep them kind of one sort of shape rather than really long and thin. They kind of want to be quite sort of round like that. I've got those. So you'll start to see maybe slightly more of what's happening in these ones, like see this bird head. Okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to, and I guess this might become a bit more landscapey, we're going to use our Pritt stick and we're just going to add a little bit of glue, and we'll start at the bottom of our page, and we're just going to use the small torn up pieces to start with, and we're going to work. I'm going to film this fairly quickly because you don't want to watch me gluing and sticking, but essentially we're doing a little row of these pieces. I'm thinking like almost like a dry stone wall, so you're seeing, if you've got any with a flat edge for the bottom, that might be quite cool. And then we're building up the wall, we're building up these rows and using different bits of the little collage pieces. And so we're starting with the little pieces, and then, yes, you guessed it, as we build up, they're going to become bigger. So you can see there's lots of different colours, and I just love how the orange underneath is sort of peeking through and becomes its own thing. So we're building up these pieces, not worrying about, it's almost like a jigsaw that you don't have to be too accurate with. That's my kind of jigsaw. Okay, right, so we'll imagine that I've finished all of those bits and now I'm going to start with the bigger pieces. And yeah, this one's got a corner, so I'm going to fit that into the corner there. And a straight edge. I've got a straight edge here. So you can see I'm building up the bigger pieces as well. And get this little bird's head in there. And I'm not caring about the shapes. Well, I'm caring more about the shapes and whether it's the same bit of collage. In fact, the better, the more different it is, the better. And yeah, it'd be good to, if you've got any magazines, getting some words in as well. I always think looks quite cool. Okay. Anyway, so this is our abstract collage, and we will take a bit longer to do it in the, but you can see that's starting to take shape, and these smaller bits will build up. Maybe what we'll do is do some medium-sized ones in the middle. Okay, so number 1, sorted. Number 2, we're going to do a still life. And that's just going to be a vase with some flowers in. We'll need the scissors for this one. I'm going to use some of my scraps that I worked with. But essentially, we're going to use the scraps of collage to create the shapes that we might make for a vase. So, for example, that could be a flower. I'm actually going to use this kind of grey one for the vase itself. Now, if you want to, you can even draw it on first, so you get the right feel and shape. Or you can just go freehand scissor cutting. doesn't really matter. And you know, if your collage stuff is just with words, then that could look really cool. So I'm gonna glue the bottom of my vase down so I know where it's going, but then I will leave this not glued down so I can slot any stalks in or leaves. I'm gonna do a couple of leaves out of these darker bits. So yeah, so just making a few cuts. Again, this can go, we're going to go a lot slower. It's just boring for you to watch me cut loads of shapes out. I should have done a couple of Blue Peter things. Here's one I made earlier. I always think that's really annoying when you see that. And as you can see, I'm sort of going freestyling with the petals. And do a couple of stalks with this. Okay. Let's try. So I'm going to glue the stalks and then lift up the vase a little and glue it from there so it goes underneath. Trying to be a bit neater than my usual self. I'm just going to do 3 stalks, but you guys, when we do it together, we can take our time. And then our little flowers on the end of the stalks with some leaves. My leaves are really big. There we go. Our very own still life with very little materials, and just, it's a really good way of exploring composition and stuff. So that's number 2. Okay, our still life. And then our final one, we are going to do a landscape, and it's all about, again, this is all about ripping. I'm going to try to make mine, I really like landscapes in a sort of square format, because it's traditionally, yeah, not square. So I'm going to start with the top row, and am I? Yes, I am. So I'm just going to measure where to cut by simply drawing, and then I'm just going to stick the top bit, this is going to be my sky, down, because then we'll sort of layer everything over the top of this. Now I'm thinking that we might not get round to this one on our first week, but we can try in the second week, but also do some jelly plate printing with this similar technique of layering the landscape, because I've been watching some videos, I've been doing some research about that. So they're going to have some couple of mountains in the background. Again, I'm going to just, what am I going to do? I'm going to just mark where I need to cut. so it fits into my square. So there we go, that's our background mountains. And I'm keen to use lots of layers for this one, so I might, excuse me if I don't do it on the video, but when we do it in real life together. And then quite like that. There we go. Oh, look at that, I've even measured it to the right size. Sort of layer there. And you can, I mean, I'm lucky because I've picked my magazine that I'm using is a bird magazine that has sort of adverts for places, but you can choose different magazines that might relate to the idea of landscape, or, you know, like just using some coloured card like this can be really beautiful too. So again, I'm just marking where to cut off. Fantastic. There we go. There we go. And yeah, maybe try something a little bit more mellow. For the final layer, but what I'll do is I'll add a couple more layers. So we're going here. So it really starts to become the mountains in the background, and some bits get hidden away and layered over, but that's okay. Oh, look at that, that's perfect fit. So again, just sort of tearing, imagining where the mountains might go. So here we go. All right, I'm pleased with that. And for some added effect, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my ink and I'm just going to paint around the outside to give it that dark edge framing. This is ink that my friend made out of oak galls, which has got me thinking about all sorts of things, making our own pigments and inks. So we can have a chat about that as well. Okay, there we go. So that's 3 different collage approaches. We've got a landscape, a still life and an abstract, and we'll try and see how many we can do together next week. All right, looking forward to it. Ciao, bye.